I can't hear.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. And I hope that you can hear me
Good
now.
evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm coming through clearly?
Loud
Okay.
and clear, you're good.
Okay, perfect. Last week we had some connectivity issues. So I'm going to start with gratitude today. I'm very grateful that yesterday a technician came over and assessed the computer and suggested us buying a certain part for the computer that will hopefully make it run smoother. So we won't run into that issue again. So hopefully the part came today, will be installed hopefully tomorrow, and then that should change things. But for now, Ezrat Hashem, God willing, this will be wonderful. Before we start, I would like to dedicate tonight's learning to the mother of Anne, of Hannah. Her name was Bracha Bas.
Bluma.
It was
Bluma
Bracha, right?
Bas. Bluma Bas
Bluma, I'm
Chaim
sorry.
Dov and Chana.
Bluma Bas Chaim Dov and Chana. Neshama should have an aliyah.
Thank you.
She's definitely getting a lot of nachas from yourself and from the family.
Thank you. Thank you.
And she should be a good debater, Melitz Tov.
Amen.
She should be a good advocate for us, for the family, for all of Klal Yisrael. We should have Mashiach already.
Amen. Amen.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, please, if at any time the connection gets choppy or I need to repeat anything, please do let me know. Us begin. Machana, what are you grateful for today?
So I went to the rally yesterday, and it went very
is my connection already
smoothly,
gone?
and there was a fabulous. Oh yeah, you gonna hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you?
Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yesterday I went to DC to the rally, and thank God everything went very smoothly. I think for almost a year there was a lot of traffic, a lot of delays. People came late, but we had a great turnout. There was no incidents reported, no nothing. It was like, thank God, it was like a great day for most people, I think, showing support. So grateful for that.
Beautiful. Thank you, and thank you for going.
Of course.
Lisa
Yeah.
and Julie, it's great to see you. Lisa, what are you grateful for today?
Another day of waking up to my family around me and just enjoying Isaac and basking in the glow of his overachievements.
Beautiful. Beautiful day. Do you hear me, Julie?
Yes.
Yeah, what are you grateful for today, Julie?
My son, I'm very proud of him. He's doing very well in college, and I'm just grateful for him.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And Joan, I'm sorry that it's raining. I wanted to stop by actually with your student book. I think everyone besides for you has their student book. But the rain is so crazy. God willing, it will stop.
What happened?
It's like there's a flood here, like the Mabler again. Noah's flood. It's crazy, and it's the way. It's November 15th today. It's not supposed to be raining here.
It's pouring
Joan.
down here. It's pouring down in Homestead, Florida.
Yeah.
New York is beautiful. Ironic.
That's
nice,
it, right?
cool
It's
weather.
35 degrees.
So nice.
So, Joan, what are you grateful for today?
Well, that I'm inside.
You're grateful that you're inside. The roof doesn't have a leak. Beautiful.
Exactly.
Nina, what are you grateful for tomorrow? Oh,
Can you
there we
see?
go. You got a book also. Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. And Sylvina, what are you grateful for?
I have the book also.
Beautiful. Okay, Chazak. There's just one more that I'm not sure if they have the right link. Kabbalah. Okay. Okay, so today we have a lot of work to do. We're going to do a quick recap of where we got until now, and today is where things really go up in the clouds, if I may. So hold on to your seats and buckle up, because tonight we're going to get to Or Ein Sof. Or Ein Sof translated is the infinite light. So before we get there, let's just do a quick recap. Then we'll get to a little bit of an intro. Then we'll get to the joke. So bear with me. It's not such a good joke. Don't hold your breath. So, the course objective, like we said, is very clear and very straightforward. We're getting to know the cosmic architecture that of existence, how we get from God to us, and in the way that parallels in the human soul. So we have God creating an other, and we have ourselves relating to outside of us, and those are parallel systems. So to that end, we have our fearless course map, which today almost everyone has in front of them. And we can look at it all together over here. We have on the left side, we have the God side, and then on the right side, we have the us side. And we see how it's all very similar, very parallel. We're starting from the bottom because, of course, we're building a skyscraper here. And if you've ever built a skyscraper before and you started from the top, we need to sit down for coffee. We're going to start from the bottom to make sure that we have a very solid structure. That's what we understand best. That's where we know best. So we started off in week number 1, exploring the worlds of Biyah, which is God's creating space for an other. And that is progressive self-awareness, where in Bria it's God and very source-centered and feels completely connected with God. Yet it's still a separate. It's already a creation. Then the next level of Yetzirah is where it's going back and forth between this God awareness and self-awareness. It understands that it's completely reliant on God, yet still feels itself as its own being. And then we have the third stage, which is Asiya, which is complete independence. And we paralleled that within the human being to be, if I want to create something outside of me, there are 3 stages that I have to do. First of all, I have to discuss it within myself. That's thought. It's very connected with me, and I have to mull it over in a way that's very close to me, because within me is where all the ideas, all the details are. From there, we get to speech, to collaborate with friends, where it's still my idea and it's still very connected to me, but I'm discussing it with others. And then once I get it done, it's its own entity, completely independent of myself. That was lesson 1. Why did it take 90 minutes the first time? Good question. Lesson number 2, last week, we explored the world of Atzilut and the 10 Sefirot, which is a space of godliness, which is not separate from God, rather within, but it does contain definition. And it's God manifesting precisely 10 discernible attributes. You can all hear me still, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So just like you have an artist, we'll take a palette with the primary colors and a few more, and from that, in 20 minutes, you can have a masterpiece with all different hues and shades and everything. So too, the color palette, as it were, for creation is these 10 Sefirot. And with combinations of these 10 Sefirot is going to be all of creation. We didn't get very deep. We didn't have time to go very detailed into each of the 10 Sefirot, but they're clearly mapped out in the book, in the texts, with the graphs and the pictures of what each of them are. We may have time to get into a little bit of it today as well. And the reason we said God created the world of Atzilut, because Biyah, the lower worlds, he created in order that there should be there should be us who can relate back to God. But then he also needed to create a him that we could relate to. In other words, for a finite being to connect with an infinite God is not possible. Therefore, he needed to create this persona of himself that we could relate to. And we gave a few examples. The best example I think we gave was light shining through a prism where the light refracts. So it's coming from the one light, but you have now distinctive colors of magenta and cyan, cayenne, however it's pronounced, like the 7 colors that come through the prism, where really it's all one light, but it's discerned and split. And we've extracted various colors from this white light. The other example we gave is if you have a brilliant mind, like Einstein, who is teaching some students, and his mind is so full of ideas, such broad ideas, that it's not possible for him to convey his mind to the student. Yet he can take one idea and give that over. So that idea is coming from we won't call it infinite because Einstein's mind isn't infinite, but it's close to there. So he's taking one point, one idea from that great mass wealth of information, and pulling it into culling from his great understanding one little line that can be given over to the high school students in a way that they can understand. And we said that in our soul space, the 10 Sefirot are paralleled by the 10 powers of the soul. We each possess a distinct soul personality. Our soul is made up of these 10 powers, these 10 Sefirot, yet everyone's combination is different. And therefore, everyone has their own personality and their own character traits. So, today we're going even higher than that. Today we're going beyond, above and beyond Atzilut. Before God takes out those 10 attributes, what's before that? Higher, deeper, greater. We're going to explore the singularity, which is beyond the definition of Atzilut, beyond the definition of the 10 Sefirot, the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light. And on a human level, we'll see how this is mirrored by one specific area of our soul, which is willpower. We have a lot to get to, so let's begin. And before we begin, I promised you a bad joke. There was a moth, and the moth comes to a podiatrist. And he comes and he sits there on the table. I know moth feet doesn't really go well, but the podiatrist says, how can I help you, Mr. Moth? And the moth says, well, you see, I'm just going through so much. You know, my kids think I'm a failure. My wife doesn't respect me. Everything at work is falling apart. I don't even know what to do anymore. Everything I try isn't going well. And the podiatrist says, well, you know, I think what you're looking for is a psychologist. How did you end up here? Down the hallway, there's a psychologist. Why don't you go there? He says, I know, but this is where the light was on.
Oh.
What was the last line?
This is where the light was on.
Oh, God.
Okay. That's why the moth went to the light.
That's why the moth went.
That's funny.
Okay.
Okay, good. So now that we got moving a little bit, who here has ever heard a song Oseh Shalom Bimromav? Okay, yeah, very good. It's very, very, very Jewish, very ancient, very beautiful. Can anyone tell me what does the song mean?
He who makes peace in the hard places.
Oseh Shalom Bimromav, he who makes peace in the high places, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, he should make peace on us, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, and all of Israel, Ve'imru Amen, and we should say Amen. Okay, now I understand that within the Jewish people, though it's hard to imagine, but it's possible even within family to have rifts that need to be solved with peace. Okay, very good. But the supernal beings, like in the world of Atzilut, what kind of fights? What are the angels fighting with each other that God has to make peace between them? And it's not like we're saying the God who makes peace below, he should also make peace among the angels. Say no, the God who makes peace on high, he should also make peace down below. It's a question so simple that nobody really asks, because what do you mean? This is what we say. This is how it goes. But what does it really mean? Good question. Good. We're gonna get back to it later. But first, we're gonna start with this mystical reality that we haven't yet discussed this course. Tonight, we're gonna speak about. Oh, I forgot to mention this part. We're gonna speak about. Okay, yeah, not so important. We're gonna start off our discussion with angels. Go, tell me, what do you know about angels from a Jewish perspective?
Wow.
They intercede with man on behalf of Hashem.
Intercede for man on behalf of men towards Hashem. Yeah, they bring our prayers to God. Very good. You're listening in Supernatural.
Right.
What else? Angels. What else? Anyone? Anything about angels? Okay, so angels are spiritual beings. Angels are very holy. Angels are very high, and
Could you say they don't have a will of their own?
they don't have a will of their own. Very good. They are completely subsumed by God. They are messengers. Very good. Very good. Okay, so here's my question. Does anybody know a very famous line that the angels say?
The what?
A famous line from the angels, quoted by the angels.
Kedusha?
Yes,
Yeah.
very good.
What is it?
We say every day in our prayers, actually. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh.
Kadosh,
Holy,
Kadosh.
holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. Okay. That comes from a verse in Isaiah, text number 1. We don't have time to get into it. It's not so important to get into. But there is this line that we say every day in our prayers, multiple times a day. Holy, holy, holy. This is what the angels say. The angels cry out one to the other and they say, holy, holy, holy. So my question to you is, number 1, what does that line mean? And number 2, why is it important for us to include that in our daily prayers?
Just to recognize the holiness of Hashem.
That we should recognize the holiness of Hashem, okay. And what does it mean, holy, holy, holy?
3 times.
Or the angels?
Okay, so the answer to all of these questions lies in our understanding of the next dimension in our cosmic exploration, which is the Or Ein Sof.
What?
Are we ready? The infinite light. Okay, good. So let's look at a teaching from the Arizal, one of the greatest Kabbalists of all time. This is going to be text number 2. And Lisa, do you have your book in front of you?
I do, but I'm not. I need to get to the right page.
Okay, I'll tell you what page it's on. 75.
Okay.
Page number 75, text number 2. So this is going to be just a little bit of a background behind where we're getting to today and what's the source for, or one of the great sources for what we're going to learn tonight.
In the beginning, Rabbi Chaim Vital Etz Chaim Derush Igulim Beyosher.
Okay, yeah. So it's important to note that the Arizal himself actually did not write and he did not author any books. Everything that we have from the Arizal was penned by his students, and his foremost students was Rabbi Chaim Vital. So almost all the teachings that we have from the Arizal were actually written down by his student. Okay, go for it. Before
Atzilut was emanated and before the creations were created, A simple divine light filled all of reality. It had no aspect of beginning or end. It is called or Ein Sof, the infinite light, or
Very
Ein
good.
Sof, the
Or Ein
infinite
Sof.
light,
Yeah.
or Ein
Or Ein
Sof.
Sof. Very good. Thank you, Lisa.
Excuse me, did you say page 75?
Yes.
I don't even know where you're reading, Lisa. I can't, I'm on page 75. I
It's
don't
the
see,
first,
Text
the
number
first
2 in page
thing.
75.
I don't see where
Text
she
number 2
read
in page
from.
75.
I
So
am
my
on
first
text.
question to all of you is, what do you, when you think of simple, there we go. When you think of simple, what do you think?
Easy.
Not
Easy.
complicated.
You think of something not complicated. Okay, very good. Not complicated is close to where we're headed. When we think of simple, usually or often we think of something that is not very great, something that is on a lower level.
Oh, okay.
Simple in this context is, and not complicated is closer, is a good way of saying it. And we're going to use the words undefined. Creates parts. When we talk about simple, we don't mean simple as in stupid or simple as in easy. We refer to simple as undefined, beyond definition. Removed from any characteristics or character traits. So the first thing that existed, he says, is Or Ein Sof, the infinite light. Now, before we get into what is it and how is it, there is something that we need to tackle, which is, we learned in lesson 1 that one of the most important things when we look at Kabbalah is to make sure that we don't take anything too literally. You know what it is? Like kleptomaniacs don't understand puns because they're always taking things literally. So let's not be kleptomaniacs. We have to make sure we're not taking things literally. So when we say that there was a great light, right? Or when you have people who have out-of-body experiences, people who die and come back. I'm not an expert in the subject, but I do know that almost all of them say that there was this great light that they were drawn towards. So let me ask you a question. As believers in God, as believers that God has no form, if we say that God is a light, is that limiting God and saying that God is that problematic, or is that okay to say that God is a light?
There's also darkness.
Very good. If God is light, God is not dark. And light itself is a creation. Yes, it's very intangible. So it's a very great creation. Yet light is a creation with definition. So why are we using the words light here? God is not, God forbid, a light. God is a being, the likes of which we cannot fathom. Light is something that we can understand very clearly. So why are we referring to this as light, the Or Ein Sof?
Well, there's another meaning to light, like enlightening. You're making things.
Okay, good. Well, what we're going to discuss today is that we're using light as an analogy. Because, like we said in lesson 1, unfortunately, we only have one language. So we have to use terms in the language that we understand. And hopefully from there, we can come back and understand and figure out what really is going on. To remove and divest the idea from the words in which it is conveyed. So there are two great things about light. You know, let me ask you this. If it's raining outside right now, for us down here in South Florida, I'm not sure what it's like in Titusville, but for us down here, no rain, lucky. For us down here, it's pouring rain. What happens when the clouds disappear? What happens to all the water? The water disappears as well?
Evaporates.
Eventually, but for now, it stays here, right?
It goes somewhere else.
or wherever it goes, right? If I pour water on the floor, and then I throw the cup into the garbage, the water stays on the floor.
It evaporates.
Eventually it will evaporate, but until then, meaning
Everything I
here,
answer
let's
to
get to the contrast. If I turn my
It doesn't
flashlight and face
move.
it towards here, right? So you see that now there's a lot of light over there. As soon as I turn off the flashlight, what happens to that light?
Disappear.
It disappears. So what does that mean? Two things. Number one, if there's light, there must be a source.
Mhm.
You can have water without clouds. You can have paint without a bottle. You cannot have light without a source. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Great. Number two is that if you the light is always dependent and very connected, very closely connected to its source.
Its source. Mhm.
And as soon as it, for example, if we shut the source, the light disappears straight away. So the light is just an extension of the source of light, and the light is always dependent on its source.
Oh my God.
Does that make sense? So if we have to use some kind of terminology, in order to describe what's going on as God is emanating from himself towards other, we use the terminology of light. Because light is dependent on its source. Light is always connected to the source. And light, if you see light, you know automatically what kind of source it's coming off. You walk into a room, you can straight away tell. Is the light bulb a yellow light bulb? Is it an old light bulb? Is it a flickering light bulb? You walk into the room and the light, all it does is tells you about its source. Is that clear?
Mhm.
Perfect. So when we talk about Or Ein Sof, we don't mean actually an infinite light, an actual light, but we're talking about an emanation from God. And we're using the word light because that's the closest word we have. So, what exactly is this Or Ein Sof? We know that it's greater than the world of Atzilut, but what actually is it? So, using the examples that we used last week, if we're talking about Einstein, it would be Einstein's mind as he thinks for himself, beyond any ideas that he can convey to others. His clarity that he has on any given subject. And if he's going to convey any subject, he's going to have to go from that clarity that he has and define it in words that can be given over in bite-sized pieces of information. But the Ein Sof, the infinite part of that, of course, Einstein's brain is not infinite, but in the infinite side of that would be Einstein's brain, Einstein's mind, and the clarity that he has on any given subject. Or if we were using the example of the light refracting through the prism, it would be the light before it refracts through the prism. That it's just a light, a white light with no definition other than the fact that it's white. So that's not a good example in that way either. It's like the example that we started, that we kind of bring, was that if you had a white sheet of paper and then you overlaid it with a black sheet, a black stencil, so then all of a sudden words, pictures, whatever it is, takes form on the white page. But when you remove that stencil, you're left with that blank sheet. It's what comes before God creates these 10 Sefirot. We'll get to more clarity soon. We're going to add more words to it. So what actually is Or Ein Sof, right? Forget about the analogies. What actually is Or Ein Sof? So the word Or means light, and Ein Sof means that it is infinite. It is a light which is infinite. So there's two ways of understanding that. Is it a light? The light itself is infinite. Or is it a light which is a ray of that which is infinite? In other words, God is infinite, and this is a light that is coming from God.
Froze.
Yes?
You froze at one point.
Oh, it froze.
Yeah.
Okay, am I back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good?
Yeah, now we're good.
Okay, so Or Ein Sof. Or means light, Ein Sof means infinite. And the question is, we're back, right? So there's two ways of looking at it. Number one is we could read it that it is a light, which is portraying the infinite. It is a light that's coming from the infinite God. Or it could be translated as an infinite light. It itself is infinite. So which of the two is it? Is it an infinite light, or is it a light that is reflecting that which is infinite? In other words, are we talking about the source of light, the infinite? Is a ray coming out of the source, which is infinite? Or the second understanding is that infinite is describing the light itself, that the light itself is infinite light. And the answer is going to be, which one is the right one?
Both. Both.
What's going to be the correct answer here?
Both.
Both. Both.
Light that
Very good. Very
light
good.
emanating.
The answer is both. The answer is both. And one of them leads to the other. One of them leads to the other. Because it is a light that's reflecting the infinite. And because we said before that a light is all it is a reflection of that which it is shining from. So if the source is infinite, the light will be infinite as well. Make sense? So the two main points to note over here is number one, that this Or Ein Sof which we are talking about, that is higher than Atzilut, that the 10 Sefirot are actually coming from, is not the source itself. It's not God himself. Why can't... Am I coming through clearly now, or is it choppy?
It's okay. It's okay. It's good.
Sorry?
It's good.
It's good? Okay. So number one is that the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light, is not the source itself. It's just the light. And the reason for this is because God himself cannot be contracted. Why am I talking about contractions here? Because in order to get 10 Sefirot from an infinite light, there needs to be a contraction. And that contraction cannot come within God himself. Therefore, if there is going to be any contraction, it's going to first have to come from a place which is not outside of himself, yet not his essence. Hopefully this will become more clear as we discuss it within the parallel of the human, because we understand ourselves a lot better. Which is that as soon as I'm moving outside of myself, as soon as I have a desire to create another, as soon as I'm entertaining the thought that there will be another being, I'm already not essence for myself anymore. Does that make sense? A little bit.
Please repeat it.
This is like really heady
Number
stuff.
one is that the Or Ein Sof, this infinite light, is not the source itself. Sorry?
The last sentence about creating outside of God. God creating outside of himself.
got cut off. Okay. So as soon as I start thinking about someone else, I am no longer myself for who I am anymore. I'm already relating to something outside of me.
Okay.
So to God, as soon as he's towards creation of the world, that's already not his essence anymore. And that is what we are referring to as the infinite light. Amen. And number two important thing to know is that light is always reflecting its source. So the source of this infinite light is the infinite one, God himself. And God himself we're going to talk about in lesson number 6. So this light is not the actual source of everything, but it is a part of the process in creation. It certainly is not the space of created otherness. It is not even the space of divine definition. It is pure, undefined, godly light that transcends the particular distinction of the 10 Sefirot and the worlds of Atzilus. It stands above them altogether. Is my connection clear again, or it's still choppy?
It's okay.
It's okay. Perfect. So, to summarize where we are until now, is that we're trying to get from God to another. In order to create an other, you need a space where the other can be. That's the lower 3 worlds of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. The blueprint for all of that is the 10 Sefirot of Atzilut, which are the color palette as it is to create everything. Those come from within Or Ein Sof. Or Ein Sof is the infinite light. How we get from infinite to 10, that we're going to talk about in lesson number 5. But for now, what's important to know is beyond Atzilut, beyond this this defined 10 Sefirot of God that we can relate, this persona, as it were, that God created for himself that we can relate to, is the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light, which is beyond all definition. The infinite light, which we're talking about today, which is beyond all definition, yet still not God's essence. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes.
Clear?
Not at
Well-
all. I mean, maybe because I missed the last class, but I feel like this is so like now I understand why they say you can't study Kabbalah until you're much older because it's very
I'm not
out
hearing
there.
my end. Say that one more time.
I understand now why they say you should not study Kabbalah until you are much, much older because my brain is starting to like fold in on itself. I can't like, I don't know, maybe because I missed the last class, but I just can't seem to grasp
Uh-huh.
it.
Okay, so what that means is that we're having our desired effect.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm
Good.
79,
It's working.
so I'm not old. I'm not old enough yet either.
L'chaim.
L'chaim. L'chaim.
L'chaim. Let me see if there's a more simple or more defined instead of less defined
Maybe you could go slower.
way to put it. Maybe if we go slower also. Give me just a
No,
second
no, talk
to
slower.
compile my
Talk
thoughts, and then
slower.
we'll try different ones.
Okay.
Okay, we can try that also.
Are we following in the book?
What we know so far, not yet. We'll get what we we so far did one text. We'll see how much more we'll get to on the inside. We have Baruch Hashem a lot to get to still. Okay. What we know so far, what we've learned so far about God is that he wants to relate to us. We know, of course, that God is an infinite being beyond any definition. Therefore, in order to relate to us, he has to first create a space in which we can exist. That's what we discussed in lesson 1, the space in which we exist. Then last week we discussed Atzilut and the 10 Sefirot, which are the blueprint for creation of the rest of the worlds, which come from God, these 10 defined character traits, if we shall, the 10 Sefirot. And that's all we know until now. Well, that's all we have until now. We have that there's God, and from God comes the 10 Sefirot, which are within God, yet removed from the world. They are godly, but they are God's persona, as it were, that we can relate to. And then there's a space for other, eventually us. Is that part clear so far? Yes?
We can accept it.
You have any?
What part?
Is my sound coming through?
Yeah.
What part can't you accept?
I thought it was doing better today, the computer.
It's been fine on my end.
Fine here too, in Hobart.
Try joining from my computer audio.
I can hear you.
I mean, my phone audio instead.
We
Let
can
me
hear
try that and see
your-
if it's any,
No,
any
no.
more clear. Maybe
No,
just
that's
a moment.
It's good.
That's not what they're saying, Rabbi. They're saying they don't understand. It's not clear in terms of understanding.
Understand.
I think he's,
Not,
I think
not sound.
he's logged off. Yeah, he's coming back on his phone.
Oh. He didn't hear you when you said. Oh, wait on.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
Not sure what happened over there, but is this better?
It's fine.
We're
It's-
good now.
It's
We're
clear.
good now. Okay. If anything changes, please let me know. So, where was I? So we have God created an other. God
He's stuck.
exists.
Now it's worse.
It's worse again?
I wonder if it's the weather, like the storm is messing.
Yeah, you got stuck.
I
Yeah, it's like-
Okay.
Okay. Is this easier to hear now?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
My audio coming through well?
Yeah, we're good.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I switched to my phone. Hopefully that will work better. Okay, let's try this again now. And if at any point it cuts out, then you let me know. Are you able to hear me clearly?
Yes.
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 Perfect. Okay. So what we have is we're going from below to above. And in our progression, we have that God created a space where we can exist. We have that God created within himself.
Take your hat off and come and say hello.
God created within himself a persona that we can relate to, and a blueprint with which he creates the world. But this is all defined. This is all not yet God. Today we're going a step higher than that. We're going we're beginning to explore the realm of infinite. And what we're saying is that yes, within the infinite, there is still, before we get there is levels of infinite before we get to God himself. There is infinite, which is not the essence of God. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I feel like I'm asking if it makes sense too many times, but it probably doesn't, right?
Now I gotcha.
So what we're discussing today is that beyond the world, and beyond Atzilut, which is already, yes, it's God, but it's God in the way that he relates to the world, there is the infinite light, the Or Ein Sof. But this Or Ein Sof itself is still not the essence of God. It's still an emanation of God. It's godly, it's within the God space, it's not separate of God, but it's not the essence of God. Us here down in this world feel separate of God. The Or Ein Sof is completely subsumed by God, just as light has is not a creation of its own. It is merely an extension of that which it is shining from. It's merely an extension of its source. Yet it is not the source itself. For example, you have the sun. The sun can provide warmth and light for an infinite amount of time. The rays of the sun can also provide warmth and light, but the rays of the sun contain the same infinite power of bringing warmth and light and whatever else that the sun's rays bring to us. But is it the sun itself?
No, it's an extension of the sun.
It's not the sun itself, it's not the sun itself, and it's an extension of the sun. Now, it's not such a good analogy because the rays of the sun are outside of the sun. Here, God, we're saying that this light is within God. But the point that we're making here is that within, as soon as we get beyond definition, that doesn't mean that we're already at God's essence. Just because we're beyond definition, it doesn't mean that we're at God's essence. Can we agree on that?
Mhm.
So that's what we're learning about today. What we're learning about today is the lower level of God's infiniteness, if that makes sense. If we can even use those words. That within once we go beyond definition, that doesn't mean we're yet at God's essence. For more clarity on, and I think that's the point that we want to get to tonight. So now that we already know that beyond Atzilut there's more to God, the question is, why is that important?
Because it's
So here we
beyond
get
of
that.
definition.
Sorry?
Because it's beyond of definition, so we cannot put a word because
Right.
it's not the source. It's a light. So
Right.
So what difference does it make how many levels there are beyond definition, right? There's a God and he's beyond definition and he's also within definition. So that's where we're bringing these angels in. I want to start with an analogy of a little kid. If you have, of course, anyone who has children, you know that your husband, of course, is the most incredible person who ever existed. Let's talk about a great philosopher. Let's talk about a great philosopher who really is an incredible, or let's say a brain surgeon, a top brain surgeon. He has a brilliant mind, skillful hands, an incredible human being. And he comes home after work and is playing Lego, building a house with his 5-year-old son. Sitting on the floor with his 5-year-old son building Lego. Now, this 5-year-old kid, all he knows about his father is that his father provides security, his father provides direction, and his father plays with him. But is that who his father is? Who his father is, this kid has no idea who his father is. This kid can't begin to understand the depth of his father's knowledge, the breadth of his father's expertise. Are we together on that?
Yeah.
Good. So does it matter? Does the kid need to know what his father is or who his father is? Bottom line is he's getting his security, he's getting his protection, he's getting his food, he's getting his playtime and his connection with his father, and that's all he needs. So that's why we speak about the angels when it comes to prayer. Because the angels are saying, holy, holy, holy. Holy means removed. And these angels are in Berea. These angels are much more spiritual than us, much more spiritually accomplished than we are. They understand a lot better than we understand. Yet within their awareness, they understand that there is God beyond definition. And they are wishing to get closer to God and to learn more about that God. And that is why they say, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. And we want to understand that holiness. We want to grasp or have some kind of connection to that which is beyond us. And we say this in our prayers so that we too should be filled with a desire and a yearning to get closer to that which is beyond us, to understand more of who God is himself beyond creator. Just like that little kid starting to understand what it means that his father is a great brain surgeon. And who his father really is as a human being, not just as he relates to this little kid. So back to our Einstein example, if one of these kids sitting there in the high school would be very wowed by the speech Einstein gave and was able to convey to them some kind of a message, and he thought that was really cool, what's the next step? Many of the boys or girls in the high school, after hearing this speech, will say very nice speech and they'll go to lunch. But then you have one kid who says, wow, if this is what Einstein could teach me, could you imagine what else he has? A clever and sensitive student will want more. So that is why we speak about the seraphim, we speak about the angels in our prayers as well. Because God is not only the creator, God is beyond that as well. And we want to try and learn and understand as much of the beyond that as we can. Now, yes, this is heavy Kabbalah. This is not an intro class. This is deep stuff. And one of the reasons why it's so hard to grasp this is because we are talking about the infinite. And with our minds, all we can understand is that which has definition. So to begin speaking about matters that are beyond definition, without any kind of limitation, without any kind of description, is the word I'm looking for, it becomes very hard for us to grasp.
It's like, how do you teach a blind child the color brown?
Very good example. Very good example. Thank you, Lisa. Okay. So now let's go back to Oseh Shalom. And this will also add a little bit more to the understanding here. So, are there turf wars between the angels? Are they playing with Nerf guns, or what are they doing up there? That God needs to make peace on high. Let's go back to our chart. And let's look on the human side, right? So we have or you know what? Let's look back on this side over here. So we have Chesed on the right side, Gevura on the left side. Chesed means kindness, unconditional giving. Gevura is withholding and restraining and pulling back. So if you have these two opposite entities, one wants to only give and one wants to only hold back. How do we have functionality? How does that work? And the answer is that, actually, you know what, before we get there, do you notice that there are lines connecting each one of the 10 Sefirot?
Mm-hmm.
If you count them, there are 22 lines. What else is 22? There are 22 letters in the alphabet, in the Aleph Beis, I should say, which is the language which forms all that exists. So what's remarkable about this is that the lines are not only connecting the Sefirot, which are on the same general outline as themselves, the right side being giving, the left side being retracting, and the middle line being the synthesis of the two. But they're connecting even opposite spheres. Chesed and Gevura, which is the pure, generous, undeliberated giving, and the Gevura, which is deliberate, calculated, and withholding, are connected together. How does that work? How do you connect two opposites?
By making a circle.
By making a circle, right, a Venn diagram. But when you have two opposites and you want them to connect, as soon as you bring in a higher authority and they forget a little bit about their own agendas, their own ideas, and their own philosophies, they can work together.
But aren't these opposites? It's like the yin and the yang. I mean, everything it's like the other side of it, but it's still, you know what I mean? It's still the other side of it. It's the same thing, just two different sides.
It's a balance.
Explain a little more what you mean. I'm not sure I understand the question so well.
I'm saying, you said, how are Chesed and Gvura related? Meaning they, and I think that Lisa said it, that it's a balance, that each so each thing that you do, each characteristic you have, has an opposite to it. And that opposite is used to balance the other side. So they're connected. It's like they're part of the same thing. You said, how are the opposite things connected?
Oh, very good. So that's exactly it. There's the you, which can balance these two sides in you.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But the chesed on itself, right? Let's say there were two people in a business. Or you know what? Let's look at text number 7. You know what? Can you read that for us, please, Naomi?
Could
can you
be
read, number 7 for us?
Could be like taking the ego out.
Exactly. Taking the ego out.
What
As
page?
soon as we start thinking a little bit less of ourselves and a little bit more about the mission and the purpose, everything changes. This is going to be on page number 83.
Yeah. Could you also say that it's not really the other side of the self? Like, for instance, when Adam was born, he was born like yin yang with male and female, but then they were separated, right? So now we've got chesed, it's not exactly the same, but chesed and gebura rather than yin yang, talking to them.
I'm not so familiar with the yin and the yang, and that might be what's throwing me off over here.
So you know that
Yes.
that symbol, you've seen it before. Hold on. I'm looking it up.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to digress.
Oh, it's okay.
No,
It's
the
just,
rabbi was going to tell us.
So how about this, Naomi? Can you read for us text number 7?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Do you have the textbook? It came, right?
Yeah. I just wanted to
Okay,
show you,
perfect.
it's this thing. You've seen it, right?
My internet is working a little slow. I'll look it up after.
Okay. All right. So the synthesis of the 10 sefirot, especially those that are opposites, such as chesed and gvura, is made possible through the agency of supernal light that transcends the characteristics of the sefirot. Upon sensing this supernal light, the sefirot experience bitul. They relinquish their configuration and synthesize with each other. Hold up. Since this sense sefirot, especially those that are opposites, chesed and gvura, made possible through the agency of the supernal light that transcends the characteristics of the sefirot. Upon sensing the supernal light, the sefirot experience bitul. They relinquish their configuration and synthesize with each other. They come together.
Correct. So continue to consider.
Okay, consider the example of two government ministries who hopelessly oppose each other. Very timely. Okay, when they must appear together before the king, they remain who they are with their preferences, but find themselves working with the opposing viewpoint to reach a required consensus. This is a consequence of their state of bitul that results from their
I'll come
overwhelming
this way so they
opposition
don't
and
see
awe
you.
of the king's majesty, whose rank is by far transcends their own. Similarly, the opposite forces of chesed and gvura in Atzilut can synthesize due to the illumination of God's infinite light, or Ein Sof.
Other words, thank you, Naomi. Other words which are used to describe this is that you have Michael, who is the officer of water, the angel of water, and Gabriel, who is the angel of fire, and they don't extinguish one another. So, yes, the bottom line is that we have to have, and we do have, looking from the end goal and the end product that we have, is a beautiful synthesis of all of the 10 sefirot working together. But the only way that's possible is because there is something that transcends them, that has a goal for them together. If we had only chesed and gvura, each one would be, let's say you had what's a good example? The classic example is when you come to you're going down the street and you see a homeless man who's asking for money. So the chesed side of you is saying, give him, what do you care? Give him. A guy needs money, he's asking for money, you give him. The gevura side says, what do you mean? 1 second. Did he try to apply for government assistance? Does he live in a shelter? Has he tried that out? Is he using the money for food or for drugs? No, it's not a good idea to give it. And then you have the tiferet, which is the combination of the two, the synthesis of the two, which is, okay, maybe he doesn't deserve it, but give him anyway. these can only work together, work in tandem, because there is something beyond them, which is in the human, your desire, which we're going to get to soon. Wow. Okay. Which we're going to get to soon. Or within the way the world works, is this keter, the crown, this unlimited, this Ein Sof, the infinite light, which creates context so that everything can work together. And they're not only thinking about what's my role as who I am, rather what's my role as I play in the general picture. And bittul is a nice way of saying bittul is subsumed into the greater cause. So yes, they do work together. But the reason why they work together is because there is a vision and because there is a mission. And that's what's so important about the Ein Sof, keeping everything and everyone in check.
Everyone in what?
In check.
In chain.
Yeah. So that's what it means that God makes peace above, is that these Sefirot are not each on their own. And we're going to learn actually next week about what it would look like if each one was on their own, when we talk about the world of chaos and why that doesn't work out well. So this is what it means that God makes peace above. That all the 10 Sefirot work together to create this wonderful world as we know it. And then we have God making peace below as well. And peace below works the same way as well. When we realize that there's a transcendent power, when we realize that there's something beyond us, then we can get together and we can work together. And the classic expression of this is marriage, right? This is part of the Kabbalistic significance of a chuppah, that there is something greater, something beyond the young couple that are setting out. Of course, a young couple, when they're starting out, each of them believes that the other is completely perfect. And then later on, sometimes you'll have times where one spouse will want one thing, the other spouse will want another thing, and it could cause to discord, to a lack of shalom bayit. And how do we get back to it? To realize that there's a higher power in this relationship. And so not only is the chuppah there, but also the bride is circling the groom. The circle represents that infiniteness. And the groom is putting a circle ring, a round ring on the bride's finger. And by Jewish weddings, we're always dancing in circles. So by surrendering to a higher infinite authority, that's the path to Shalom Bayit. We're doing as much symbolism to remind the young couple that when we bring God into the relationship, we can submit to a higher authority and everything can flow much better. And then what comes next? Where else do we see the power of the infinite in marriage? Is that hopefully after a couple get married, they have children. Now, usually when we create something, whatever it is that we create is a done job and it's finished. But we're creating a child who can create another child, who can create another child, who can create another child. And that comes from this power of Ein Sof, the infinite power of God. So, where we've come so far, and we have 19 minutes, let's see how much of the rest we can do. Where we've come so far is that we have the world that we know and the way that God relates to the world that we know. And then beyond that is God's infiniteness, which we strive to learn more about, just as the angels do. We want to know more about God beyond the fact that he is our creator. Looking at this world and understanding God is beautiful and is very important. To sit and just look at nature and be wowed by God's creations. Yes, it's very important and it's very good. That is only God as he is creator. If we want to learn about God for who he is himself, then we have to go beyond that. And the first stage, looking from the bottom to the top, the first stage of God, beyond the fact that he's creating the world, is this infinite light, this Orein Sof, from where the 10 Sefirot come. So this is all about God. Where do we see this in our own lives? So we have the personality of our soul, which we were talking about last week, and that was an incredible lesson. But today, we go beyond that. What is deeper than our soul's personality? So if we look on back to our map, we have this connect that we have the light gray, which is the emotions. And then we have the black, which is the intellect. And then within the divine soul, we have desire and pleasure. Today we're going to focus on the desire part of it, which is desire is what fuels everything else. The power of desire is the closest thing to infinite that we have in ourselves. It is the first expression of the soul. The pleasure is not really an expression. Pleasure is something that's within, contained within the soul. But the desire is the first expression of the soul. And why is it that some person wants, back to the example of lesson 1, why is it that some people like vanilla ice cream and some people like chocolate ice cream, some people like green apples and some people like red apples? Because the makeup of their soul is different. There are certain things that this is just what you want. A person has a desire for that. Because that's what they feel will give them pleasure. That's what their soul, that's the way their soul is wired. But the when we look at the infiniteness of the soul, when we look at the power of the soul, what's more powerful? What's more powerful is your kindness, or what's more powerful is when you have a willpower to get something done? Your willpower can drive your kindness, but there's nothing stronger than willpower. Ein davar omed b'fnei haratzon. There's nothing that can stand between you and something that you really want. You could look at text number 10 later. Another connection between the desire and...
where did you get that quote from, Rabbi? What was that?
Ein davar omed b'fnei haratzon. Let's see if they quoted it in the book over here. Let me just check.
Where, on what page was that?
9.
I'm looking to see if we have that direct quote. It's a quote that's brought down in where's the original quote of it? I'm not exactly sure. But we're gonna see two stories. Hopefully we'll have time for them that are gonna bring this point out. But Ein davar omed b'fnei haratzon it's all over the Talmud, all over the Gemara. The original source for it, I'm not exactly sure. It may be one of the texts in the book.
Okay. Wait, where, is it in the book? Did I miss it?
We may, that's what I'm looking to see if they bring it that exact quote into the book or not. But we'll get there.
What does it mean again, please?
There is nothing that stands in the way of willpower. Ein davar omed b'fnei haratzon. If you really want it, you'll get it done. Desire is far deeper than the powers of intellect and emotion. It speaks a completely different language. You can't reason with desire. That's just what you want. It's directly connected with your soul. So this is the highest form of desire that comes from the deepest place within your soul. So there are two levels of desire that we're going to discuss very briefly, which is a desire to live, a desire to have a child, a desire to have security, to have a place of your own. These are things that are very, very strongly connected with the soul of a human being. There is another form of desire, which is you want something because it makes sense. So let's say you want to buy a certain car and you came up with all the definition, like all your the things that are important to you. You came with a checklist, and then you chose this one because it was within your budget and what you were looking for. This one had the greatest safety test. And then before you actually go through the purchase, then you find that there was another car that actually had better safety tests. So now you don't want that car anymore. You want a different one. So a desire which is born from reason can be changed, even though it's strong. And like you can read in the text number 12 and 13, that this lower kind of desire can trigger your strong desire and can actually, once a person decides and sets their mind on something, there's no way of talking them out of it.
That's me.
Right? So even though it's a desire that's not necessarily connected with the soul, or something that is uniquely fitting to that
Physical.
person's soul from the depths of who they are, but it can trigger that. Because at the end of the day, it's desire. And then there's no talking a person out of it. And just like we said by God, that this great, this Orin Sof pulls all of the other Sefirot together, so too when a person has a desire for something, that completely takes over their whole being. It completely takes over their intellect as well as their emotion. If somebody has their mind set on something, or it's not their mind, if somebody has their will set on something, it could make no sense. It could be completely opposite of their character to do. But if that's what they decided they're doing, then they will convince their brain to come up with ideas and explanations of why that's a good thing. Their emotions will start living in sync with that. Because that's how powerful the will is. So I want to read, so text number 14 is an incredibly powerful story of a man who actually was dumb. He could not understand anything. But he was told that if you want, you put your mind to it, it'll happen. And he sat for 4 months trying to learn, and he ended up here. If in text number 14 in the middle, you have that as well. That nothing stands in the way of desire, which is a quote from. Well, apparently it's a quote from the Zohar,
which is
okay.
what we're studying.
If you look at footnote 63, I believe it is, or I don't know what footnote it is inside the student book, on page 95. So he actually became a brilliant man from putting his mind to it. It was something that he decided was very important to him, and he put himself to the task and actually became a smart person. Text number 15 I want to read. There's a story. This is going to be on page number 99. It's a very powerful story. Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov was once sitting with his students in the synagogue, engaged in Torah study or prayer. In the nearby street, a man was passing with a wagon, and due to the thick mud on the road, the wagon got stuck. The man approached the window of the synagogue where the Baal Shem Tov and his students were sitting, and requested their assistance in extracting the wagon from the mud. The students replied they did not have the strength to assist because the wagon was heavy and the mud was deep. The man responded in Ukrainian, "Możesz da, nie chcesz," which means you can, you don't want to. How many times have you told that to your kids? In other words, you have the ability, but not the will. And without the will, you imagine that it's too much for you. Afterwards, the Baal Shem Tov explained to his students that what they heard was not a coincidence, but a lesson for serving God. When Jewish children set out to study Torah, and the same is true of Jewish adults, they may feel that they are unable to do so due to fatigue or smartphones. They need to remember, Możesz, da nie chcesz. God gives us the strength to do all good things. It is just that sometimes we listen to the voice of negative inclination within us, and then we lose the desire to act accordingly. At that point, we falsely believe that we are incapable. Because if we really want to, we can get it done. So here's a big question. What happens? What happens if we don't have that desire, right? Our smartphone is pulling us too strongly. Instead of sitting down and learning, or instead of going to do chesed, to go and help out, to volunteer, to do something good, to do a mitzvah, to do something nice, we want to sit back and relax. But in our mind, we know that we want, right? So what if we don't have the desire? Make the desire. But how do you create that desire? What happens if I don't feel that desire even on the lower level? Is there any way to generate such a desire? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes, through that. That is a part of our cognitive abilities. It's personalization, the bottom of the triangle in the black, personalization, which is part of the intellect. What does that mean? We have another 7 minutes. We may even be able to get through this. Chachma is creative intelligence, which is often depicted in comics as the light bulb. It's more of a feeling than an intellect. It's a certain flash of clarity that a person gets once you've been trying to figure out something for a long time, and then you get that flash of inspiration. The idea, it came to me. Now, what do you have? You don't have anything. If you go and start talking about something else, you'll lose the idea completely. You have to then go into Bina, which is analytical intelligence. You have to take that flash of inspiration and ground it. You have to start explaining the details and pulling them out of your soul, the depth and the breadth of the idea, or the idea, or the answer, or the or whatever it is that came to you in that flash. That is the ability to integrate what you know with who you are, to make the idea relevant and important to you. There's a story, what was his name? A great philosopher in, I think, the 1900s. What was his name? Bertrand Russell. Was that him? He was like a brilliant guy. He was a teacher of science and math and ethics. I think I'm getting the name right. You correct me later if I'm getting the name wrong. Well, basically, this guy was he was a teacher of ethics, among other subjects. And he was once caught doing something very unethical. And one of his colleagues caught him out on it. And he said, "You, the teacher of ethics, this is how you behave?" He says, "Well, I also teach trigonometry, and I'm not a triangle." That is personalizing that which we're learning. There's a story. Is it a text in here?
Wait, so can I ask you something?
Please.
So first I just want to go through the steps that you just said. So first you said how do we want it, but how do you create that desire? So you said, yes, you could generate it through da'at, personalizing. It's like personalization. But before da'at, you said you have chachma, which is that flash of clarity that a person gets. Oh my God, I got it. Like that point where you're like, oh, like the light bulb comes. Okay. So then you get that flash, and then you go to Bina. Bina is then it's the grounding of it, the depth and breadth of the idea that comes in the flash. So then you get it. What are the details? Okay, let's get it down. Let's draw it out. And then after Bina comes the da'at, which you integrate what you know with who you are coming together. Yes, so these are the 3 steps. Okay.
Correct.
Got it.
So it's a beautiful story which brings this out. There was once a Jewish farmer, a kind and religiously devout man, but very simple and illiterate. Because he didn't live in a Jewish community, he hired a malamed to teach his children. That's what the people did in the old country. They hired someone to come and teach their kids. They would come for 6 months and go home for the holidays. So this malamed also did something else. He would also read all of this illiterate farmer's mail to him. Once a week he would come, and he would write down any responses that needed to be written back. One day, the farmer received a letter notifying him of his father's passing. As usual, he gave the letter to this malamed, this teacher, and asked him to read it to him. The teacher started reading the letter out loud, and when he arrived at the crucial line that the farmer's father had died, the farmer killed over in a dead faint.
Killed over what?
He fainted.
Oh,
Now, here's the question. Big question. The teacher is the one who's able to read. The teacher is the one who's able to understand. And he read it first. Why did the teacher just read it as a, like nothing with no emotion? And the farmer heard it and he collapsed.
It was his father.
Because it was his father. It wasn't the teacher's father that died. It didn't mean anything to him. But to the poor farmer, his father died.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So do you connect with the idea or not? There's another great example that's given. I have a surgeon who's doing a surgery on a person whose lungs are dying, right? Let's say he does a lung transplant on someone whose lungs have been destroyed from cigarette smoke. And after the surgery, it was such a stressful surgery, he goes outside and takes a smoke.
Yeah, you're gonna say that.
Right? He knows that smoking is bad. He knows better than anyone else. He sees firsthand what smoking does to that person. But he's not connecting with the idea. The idea remains abstract. So if we take something that we believe to be of interest to ourselves, let's look at text 16a. This is going to be on page
101.
101. Thank you. 101. This is from Torah, or from Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, who was the author of the Tanya. That consists of a familiar connection that triggers desire. When you think about something, we're going to get to the second part of this soon. But if you think about something and you really contemplate it, and you really think about how good it is for you, and how strongly it will impact your life, and you start connecting with the idea, and you make it real in your mind, that can trigger a desire. That can set you on this path. So if I want to learn, right? I know that I want to do better in my learning. I want to study every week. But there's a certain mitzvah that I want to do better. But I lack the desire and I lack the willpower. If I sit and think about and contemplate, what does that mitzvah mean to me? Why do I want to? Why do I think that this is something positive? And start churning it over in your mind and thinking about it, connecting with the idea, right? Let's take an example of kosher. Let's say I know that I want to start keeping kosher, but I'm not yet there. I don't have that desire. If I start thinking, why do I want to keep kosher? Maybe because I know that this is what God wants of me, and I want a connection with God. Maybe because I'm Jewish and I want to feel more Jewish. Whatever the reason is, think about it. Make it yours. Make it you. And you'll start having that desire. You'll start feeling that desire for it. And it's interesting to note that where do we see the word da'at used in the Torah? It says da'at is a connection. Da'at is a bond. As in the verse, Adam knew Eve, right? It says Adam knew his wife Eve and she became pregnant. What does it mean? He knew her and she became pregnant. That doesn't sound very good. What does it mean? Knowledge is a euphemism in the Torah for intimacy. Intimacy is taking two opposites and connecting them. There's a bond. There's a connection. To take that idea that you want to think about, that you want, or whatever the concept is that you want to have a desire for, and start thinking strongly about it in a way that you're really connected and involved and invested, the desire will come. And once the desire comes, there's no stopping you. Okay. So, today, in conclusion, if you have to run, it's 9 o'clock. Thank you for being here. If you want to stay for another minute or two, we'll conclude and we'll give a preface for next week. Today, we learned about what lies above the 10th Sorry?
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was talking to my dog.
Okay, no worries.
Mhm.
The Or Sof is the infinite light, or the light of the infinite one that is pure, shapeless, formless, and transcendent. It is the energy that expresses God's true infinity. It's what the angels are drawn to. It's what creates peace above between the warring and opposing Sefirot. But it's not God himself, but the closest thing that we have to God so far. It's the key to peaceful marriage. It's the source of procreation's infinite nature. In our soul experience, the Or Sof is mirrored by our desire. Desire transcends all logic and feeling and is much more stronger than them. It wields great power.
Wait, can you
When
time
we
out?
truly
Go
want
back.
something,
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Go
Sure.
back 1 second. So wait, what did you say? Like creates our desires? You said, like you got muffled out.
when we, okay, sure. In our soul experience, the Or Sof is mirrored by our soul desire. Desire transcends logic and feeling. It's a pure expression of our pure soul. It therefore wields great power. When we truly want something, there's nothing that can get in the way. Well, nothing inside us, right? If I have a willpower to be the fastest runner on earth, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's possible. But all of my internal obstacles fall by the wayside. And the key to desire is that, really connecting with the idea or with the goal until we deeply desire it. So, homework for this week. Think about a worthy goal, something that you want to want, something that you've been thinking about wanting for a while, something that you wish you wanted. And move it from being theoretically good to something that you actually connect with. Think about why you have a desire to want that thing. Generate the desire to pursue it and allow that desire to push you to get it done. Next week, the world of chaos. Before our reality exists another, the world of chaos. So chaotic it was that it ultimately collapses. But what is this world of chaos? The world was chaos and destruction. What does that mean? That when God created the world, it was first chaos. And is that something that was in the past or something that still exists today? Join us, please, next week as we explore the realm of chaos and discover how it speaks volumes about managing internal human conflict. It was a heavy class tonight. And King Solomon writes, Shlomo HaMelech writes, Tachlis hayediyah sheloi nodacha. The greatest of knowledge is that we do not know you. So if you're a little bit lost, don't feel bad. So long as we understand about the ideas, because the ideas themselves we may never.
This is a very brave course, this one.
Indeed. But what I can tell you is that this did a lot more for me personally. Today's lesson put things that I've been learning in yeshiva for 15 years into a beautiful context. So while none of us have a very clear understanding of it, it's much more clear than other ways that it can be portrayed. So bottom line, what we're building here is we're building a structure, and this map I love. We're getting from the bottom towards the top, where we have the other, we have the God that we're relating to, and then we're starting within God himself, which is today the Or Sof. Sylvina, what's something that you enjoyed or appreciated or learned new today?
Well, I learned a lot, so everything was very interesting. Well, the desire that when it comes, it will not stop if we really feel it. So this is very interesting. So I will have to think about my next desire, though.
Beautiful. Thank you. Auntie Nina.
Welcome.
Well, I don't want to say I'm going to stop desiring anything, because that's not the way for us to be. just that we have to set our desires on the right thing, right direction.
Beautiful. Thank you. Joan.
I'm already into chaos.
Uh-huh.
I think we all are.
Yes.
Good.
But I want to thank you once again, Rabbi, for another lesson.
Good. So we're stretching our minds. Perfect. And what a better way to stretch our minds than with talking about God. Julie.
No, I just appreciate what I learned from you tonight, because I'm going through a lot and you helped me out a lot with everything you said. And I related to it a lot. You helped me. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you for sharing
that's
that, and I hope
wonderful.
that everything works out well.
It
Amen.
will.
Good. Lisa.
The more you learn, the less you know. Uh,
Yes.
it's I don't know if exciting is the way. It's intriguing right now. And I guess exciting to know that there are these ways, there are ways of connecting with Hashem that I've never even, have never even been spoken of to me. So I kind of feel like a child in kindergarten learning my colors.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to embark on this journey because it's so there aren't words to express how important this is.
Beautiful.
So,
Thank you.
thank you for bringing us this course.
You're very welcome. And Chana, I want to mention again, we mentioned in the beginning of class tonight, it's Chana's mother's yard site. Bluma Bas.
Chaim Dov and Chana. Chaim Dov and Chana.
Chaim Dov and Chana. The neshama should have an aliyah. She should be a melit tov for all of us.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she's getting a lot of nachas from yourself and your sister and your families.
Thank you.
And what's something that you are taking away from tonight?
I like that Oseh Shalom B'Romav, where if you can, like the discipline, the kindness, but if you work towards its common goal, it doesn't have to necessarily conflict with each other. You can kind of balance each other out.
Beautiful. Thank you. And last but not least, Naomi.
This was amazing for me tonight. This really spoke to me in a
Great.
lot of ways, on like a lot of levels. So I just we'll be here forever if I go into it, but just want to thank you so much.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you very much. And I also want to say there was one plug that I wanted to mention. When we talked about the kid learning about his father and or understanding that his father is greater than just a Lego player. So it's also when we learn about or hear about a great person and we want to understand a little more about them. So I want to put a plug here for our next course, which is titled Advice for Life, starting beginning of January, so or end of January, I think. So in the winter. And it's a 6-week course on guidance and direction in our day-to-day life from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. It's an incredible, fascinating, down-to-earth, life-changing course. And so I just want to put that out there. We'll talk more about it at the end of this course. But I want to thank you all for joining. I want to thank you all for being here. I thank you all for sticking through the beginning, and I hope it made more sense at the end. Wishing you a wonderful week, a wonderful evening. See you, God willing, next week, same time, same channel. Take care, everyone.
Nice night.
Thank you. Good to see everybody. Be safe.
Bye, you too.
Thank you.